The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. "O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I pay tithes on my whole income." But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast and prayed, "O God, be merciful to me, a sinner." I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled. The one who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
O God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity. All of these lowly people. The Greek had a word for the crowd. They were called the hoi polloi. They were just sort of the people on the bottom, the common types. The Pharisee is saying, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm not like them. I'm wonderful. I'm the best. I don't do anything wrong, and everything is fine for me. Thank God I'm not like this tax collector, a miserable little man." It's important to remember that this parable is a story. These people don't really exist. Jesus is using the Pharisee as a way to make a point. In fact, the Pharisees as a class were very admirable. They were very devoted. They were very religious. They were good leaders for the people, leaders in the law. But Jesus would pick out Pharisees who were not like that because it was such of a scandal for them to be selfish, to be demeaning, to be criticizing, to putting people down. But they were in the minority, but they stood out, and that's why Jesus uses them as an example of someone who's doing something wrong. And so in this parable, it's a Pharisee. The Pharisee is puffing himself up, saying, "Look how wonderful I am. I'm so amazing." Well, in the society, he did have a high place. He was relatively well off. He was dressed in fine clothes. He was admired by the people. And our world today would admire him as well. He's so wonderful. Look at him. He's probably handsome. It's amazing. He's so strong. Not like this little tax collector. Now, the tax collectors, they weren't bad people either. They were doing the work of the Romans. It was a job. They collected taxes for the Romans from the people, and so the people hated them. They saw the Romans as oppressors. They were an occupying army. They were foreigners. They were Gentiles. They were pagans. They were all bad. And so for these tax collectors to take the people's money and give it to these horrible Romans was an abomination. And so the people despised these tax collectors for their work. But in and of themselves, they were good people, just as we see in the parable. Unlike the Pharisee who's puffing himself up, telling God how wonderful he is, not God, the Pharisee doesn't really need God. He's so self-contained. But it's all a lie. The Pharisee's lying. He's not like that. He's puffed up his ego. Often people do that because they feel insecure. They're afraid. They think poorly of themselves. So how they cover that is to pump themselves up, say how wonderful I am. But they're not, and maybe deep inside they know it. And so they're lying. They're lying to God, they're lying to themselves, and they're lying to people around them. Tax collector, on the other hand, who was looked down upon, is in fact telling the truth. He is telling the truth. He's a sinner. God, be merciful to me, a sinner. There is a term in Scripture study that's called the divine reversal. It occurs many times in parables. It occurs in the scene of Peter and Jesus up by Caesarea Philippi, when Jesus is saying he's going to Jerusalem to die. And Peter stands in his way and says, "No, you're not. You can't do that." And Jesus says to Peter, "Get behind me, Satanas." That is someone in my way. Get behind me. Because you think like people think, not as God thinks. Not as God thinks. And that's the divine reversal. That where we would assume one thing as humans, our common sense, is in fact for God, it's just the opposite. And so in this parable, what is Jesus doing but flipping who's being admired? People would admire the Pharisee, not God. In this parable, God is admiring the tax collector, that person who does lowly work, but he stands before God with honesty and humility. And so he goes home justified, whereas the Pharisee, the liar, doesn't, because he's lying to himself, lying to God, lying to other people about who he is. And so we're called as Christians to be honest people. Tell the truth. Like the tax collector, tell the truth. We are sinners. We're all in this together. Nobody's above anybody else. Nobody's better than anybody else. We're all in together. We're in community. That's how Jesus forms the church. That's how the Spirit works through the church. We're a community. We're for the common good. We're a community, and we're all in this together, and nobody's to be put down. Nobody's to be demeaned or abandoned. We're all in this together. And so we're called to treat each other with honesty. Tell the truth. Tell the truth about yourself. Tell the truth about God. Tell the truth about each other. Don't lie. When I was a child, my dad had a big thing about lying. He didn't like it. He told me on more than one occasion that if you do something wrong, you tell me the truth. I tell you, I won't punish you for doing the wrong thing. We'll take care of it. If you broke a window, we'll go get it fixed. But if you lie to me, you will be punished not for doing something wrong, but for lying. Do not lie to me. And that's the message in this parable. Don't lie. And don't tolerate people lying to you. When they lie to you, they demean you. They insult you. They put you down because they don't think you're worthy of the truth. They lie to you to get something or to control you or to talk you into something. Demand that people are honest, and you be honest as well. And that's our commitment to one another, to be truth tellers. What's the truth? Now, there are some times we might fudge it a bit. I've used the example before. The wife comes out. She's got her new dress on. She tells her husband, "Oh, honey, how do you like my new dress?" Well, in his mind, he's thinking, "Oh, my God, I don't like that dress." But, keeping peace in the marriage, he says, "Oh, no, darling, that's beautiful. I'm so happy you bought that." Okay, it's a little fib, bit of a lie. But he does it to protect her, to not hurt her feelings, and so that they sort of get along in a positive way. But with important things, tell the truth. Always tell the truth. You may even have to ask someone's permission to tell them the truth. Somebody will ask you something, ask you a question. What do you think about that? And so what you can do if you feel a little hesitant about how they're going to accept what you have to say, you can say, "Okay, I'll give you a choice. I can lie to you and make you feel good, or I can tell you the truth. My opinion is how I see it. Which do you want? But if I tell you the truth, there's no fair getting mad at me, because you told me I could do it. So here it comes. And so that's how we should be as Christians. People can count on our word. We're people of the word, the capital W. We're people of the word, but also people who are honest to our word. We keep our word. We keep our word because that's how Jesus is. Jesus didn't lie to people. And we're called not to lie to people either, and don't tolerate people lying to you. Insist that people be honest and tell the truth. And that's what Jesus is teaching us in this parable. The Pharisee, he's a liar. He's a liar on a lot of different levels. Tax collector may be lowly in the culture. The tax collector is admired by God because he tells the truth, and Jesus admires that.